The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of Quinn Barlow's ranch, just as the afternoon sun turned the California hills to gold. And when the driver helped down a young woman with a swollen belly and fear in her eyes, Quinn knew his quiet life was about to change forever. He had been mending a fence post near the main road when he heard the horses approach. Unusual, because the stage route did not normally pass this way. The woman stepped down carefully, one hand supporting her back, the other clutching a small carpet bag that looked like it held everything she owned in this world. Her dark hair hung in limp waves around a face that might have been pretty if it were not so drawn with exhaustion and something deeper, something that looked like shame or perhaps determination. Quinn could not quite tell which. The driver tipped his hat apologetically. Found her walking the road about 5 miles back. Said she was heading to Yuba City, but I do not think she would have made it in her condition. Told her you might offer water at least. Quinn set down his tools and walked toward them, wiping his dusty hands on his trousers. The woman would not meet his eyes, staring instead at the dry earth beneath her worn boots. She could not have been more than 22 or 23, he guessed, though hardship had a way of aging faces out here in the West. "Madam," he said simply, touching the brim of his hat. "I am sorry to trouble you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just need water and perhaps to rest a moment, then I will be on my way." Quinn glanced at the sun, already beginning its descent. Yuba City was another 8 miles, and the road was not safe after dark, especially not for a woman alone. He made his decision in the space of a heartbeat, the way he had learned to do during his years as a ranch hand before saving enough to buy this place. "You are welcome to stay the night," he said. "I have a spare room. It is not much, but it is clean and safe." The woman's eyes finally lifted to his face, searching for something. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because her shoulders sagged with relief so profound it was almost painful to witness. "Thank you," she breathed. "I am Sophia Vaughn, Quinn Barlow. This is my ranch." He turned to the driver. "Much obliged for bringing her this far." After the stage departed in a cloud of dust, Quinn led Sophia toward the house, matching his longer stride to her slower pace. She moved with the careful deliberation of someone whose body had become both burden and miracle. He did not ask about the baby, did not ask where she had come from or why she was traveling alone in such a condition. Those were her stories to tell or keep, and he had no right to them. The ranch house was modest, built of timber and stone with a wide porch that caught the evening breeze. Quinn had built most of it himself over the past 3 years, adding rooms as he could afford the materials. It was meant for a family someday, though at 26 he had begun to accept that someday might never come. The women in Yuba City viewed him as too quiet, too serious, too much like the land itself, useful but not romantic. Inside, the main room held a stone fireplace, a rough-hewn table with 4 chairs, and a rocking chair his mother had sent from Missouri. The spare room was small but true to his word, clean, with a narrow bed covered in a quilt his sister had made. "You can stay here as long as you need," Quinn said, setting her carpet bag on the bed. "No questions, no expectations." Sophia turned to him, her eyes suddenly bright with tears. "Why are you being kind to me? You do not even know me." Quinn considered this. "I reckon we all need help sometimes. I had help when I needed it. Seems right to pass it along." That night he made a simple supper of beans, cornbread, and salt pork. Sophia ate slowly, as if she had not had a proper meal in days, which she probably had not. They did not talk much, just the necessary words about passing dishes and pouring water. But it was not an uncomfortable silence. Quinn had always been at ease with quiet, and Sophia seemed too exhausted for conversation anyway. Over the following days, they fell into a rhythm. Quinn rose before dawn as always, tending to his small herd of cattle and the horses, fixing what needed fixing, working the land that was slowly becoming profitable. Sophia stayed in the house at first, resting, regaining her strength. He would come in for the midday meal to find bread baking or stew simmering, small ways she found to contribute without being asked. A week passed before she spoke about anything personal, and even then it was just fragments. She had come from Sacramento, she said, had worked as a seamstress. The baby was due in about 2 months, maybe less. She did not mention the father, and Quinn did not ask, though he noticed the absence of any ring on her finger and the way she flinched whenever he moved too quickly near her. The truth of her situation was written clearly enough in the details. A young woman, alone and pregnant, traveling to a place where no one knew her. It was a story as old as time, and the West was full of people running from their pasts or their mistakes, or sometimes just from lives that had become unbearable. Quinn understood that better than most. His own father had drunk himself into an early grave, leaving Quinn's mother to raise 5 children on a failing farm. He had come west at 18 to escape that legacy of poverty and hopelessness, to build something that was entirely his own. By the second week, Sophia had begun to venture outside, first just to the porch, then to the small garden plot where Quinn grew vegetables. She had a way with growing things, he noticed, coaxing life from the stubborn California soil with a patience he admired. The garden began to thrive under her attention, and he found himself looking forward to the meals she prepared with its produce. "You have a good piece of land here," she said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the distant mountains. "You have worked hard for it." "It is not much yet, but it is mine," Quinn replied, "or will be in another few years when the bank is paid off." "It is more than most people ever have," Sophia said softly. "A place of your own where no one can tell you what to do or who to be." There was something in her voice that made Quinn glance over at her. In the golden light, with her hair catching the breeze and her hands resting on her belly, she looked almost peaceful. It was the first time he had seen her without that edge of fear. "Is that what you are looking for?" he asked carefully. "A place where you can be yourself," she smiled, small and sad. "I am looking for a place where my child can have a chance, where being born the way he or she will be born does not mark them forever." Quinn nodded slowly. He understood that too. Out here, people cared less about where you came from and more about whether you could do the work and keep your word. It was not perfect by any means, but it offered second chances that the civilized East rarely did. The next morning, Quinn rode into Yuba City for supplies. The town was small, just a main street with a general store, a saloon, a church, a blacksmith, and a handful of other establishments clustered along the Feather River. He loaded the wagon with flour, sugar, coffee, and fabric that Sophia had requested, then stopped by the doctor's office. Dr. Howard Mills was a gruff man in his 50s who had come west during the gold rush and stayed when the easy gold ran out. He had delivered most of the babies in the area and had seen every manner of injury and illness. "Got a woman staying at my place," Quinn said without preamble. "She is expecting. Thought you should know in case she needs help when her time comes." Dr. Mills raised an eyebrow. "Did not know you had taken a wife, Barlow." "She is not my wife, just someone who needed a place to stay." The doctor studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Bring her by so I can check on her and the baby, or I can come out to your place if that is easier." "I will ask her what she prefers," Quinn said. On the ride back, he thought about the doctor's assumption and the assumptions others in town would inevitably make. Let them think what they wanted. He had never much cared for gossip, and he doubted Sophia would want to face the stares and whispers that would follow her into town. When he suggested the doctor's visit, Sophia agreed with visible relief. Dr. Mills came out 3 days later, examined her in the privacy of her room, and pronounced both mother and baby healthy. "Another month or so," he told Quinn afterward. "She is strong despite everything. The baby should come fine if there are no complications. You know where to find me when the time comes." As August heat settled over the valley, turning the grass gold and making the air shimmer, Sophia bloomed. Her cheeks filled out, color returned to her face, and sometimes Quinn caught her humming while she worked. She moved slower now, her belly making even simple tasks awkward, but she never complained. They talked more as the days passed, conversations that grew longer and deeper. She told him about growing up in a small town in Oregon, about her mother who had died when she was 15, and her father who had remarried quickly to a woman who resented having a stepdaughter. About leaving home at 17 to work in Sacramento, learning the seamstress trade, building a life that was small but hers. She did not tell him about the baby's father, and Quinn did not press. But sometimes he saw her staring at nothing, her hands still on whatever task she had been doing, and he knew she was remembering something painful. Those times he found small kindnesses to offer. A cup of cool water, a chair moved into the shade, wildflowers left on the table without comment. For his part, Quinn found himself sharing stories he had not told anyone in years, about his father's rage and his mother's quiet strength, about his younger brother who had died of fever at age 10, about the dream of building something lasting, something good that could be passed down to children who would never know the fear he had grown up with. "You will make a good father someday," Sophia said one evening. They were shelling peas on the porch, the rhythmic ping of peas hitting the bowl a comfortable counterpoint to their words. Quinn felt heat rise in his face. "I do not know about that. Never really thought it would happen for me." "Why not?" he shrugged. "I guess I am not the kind of man women dream about. Too quiet, too plain. I have dirt under my nails and calluses on my hands and not much to offer except hard work and land that is not even paid off yet." Sophia stopped shelling and looked at him directly. "Any woman would be lucky to have a man who keeps his word, who works hard, who offers kindness without expecting anything in return. Those things matter more than poetry or flowers or whatever else people think romance is supposed to be." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, and Quinn felt something shift in his chest, a recognition he was not quite ready to name. He looked away first, back to the peas, his fingers fumbling slightly. That night, lying in his bed on the other side of the thin wall that separated their rooms, Quinn acknowledged what he had been trying not to see. He was falling in love with Sophia Vaughn. It was foolish and complicated and probably hopeless, but there it was. He loved the way she bit her lip when she was concentrating. He loved her quiet strength and her gentle hands. He loved how she had taken his stark bachelor house and made it feel like a home without even trying. But she was carrying another man's child, and Quinn had no idea how she felt about that man or about her situation, or about anything really. She had come here seeking refuge, not romance. The last thing she needed was Quinn making things awkward with feelings she did not return. So he buried the feelings deep and tried to act normal, though he caught himself watching her more often, memorizing the way sunlight caught in her hair or how her whole face softened when she felt the baby move. September arrived with cooler nights and the promise of autumn. Sophia's time was growing close. She moved carefully now, one hand always pressed to her lower back, her ankles swollen by evening. Quinn brought her a footstool and made her promise to rest more. She argued, but not very hard, and he noticed she used the stool whenever she sat. One night, Quinn woke to the sound of crying. Soft, muffled, but unmistakable. He lay still, listening, torn between respecting her privacy and wanting to help. When the crying did not stop, he rose, pulled on his trousers, and knocked gently on her door. "Sophia, are you all right?" Silence, then a shaky breath. "Yes, I am sorry I woke you. Can I get you anything? Water? Tea?" A longer pause. "Would you sit with me for a moment? I do not want to be alone right now." Quinn opened the door slowly. The room was dark except for moonlight streaming through the window. Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, her nightgown white in the dimness, her face streaked with tears. He sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. "What is it?" "I am scared," she whispered. "The baby is coming soon, and I do not know what I am doing. I do not know how to be a mother. What if I fail? What if I cannot protect my child the way I should?" Quinn chose his words carefully. "I think every parent feels that way, but I have seen you these past months. You are strong, Sophia, stronger than you know, and you do not have to do this alone. I will help however I can." She turned to him, her eyes searching his face in the darkness. "Why? Why would you do that for me, for a baby that is not yours?" "Because I love you," he thought but did not say. Instead, he said, "Because it is the right thing to do, because every child deserves a chance. Because you deserve help and support and someone who believes in you." Sophia began crying again, but differently now, with relief rather than fear. Without thinking, Quinn put his arm around her shoulders and she leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. They sat like that for a long time until her tears subsided and her breathing grew steady. "Thank you," she finally said, "for everything, for not asking questions, for letting me stay, for making me feel safe." "You are welcome here as long as you want to be," Quinn said, and meant it with everything in him. The baby came on a cool September night 2 weeks later. Sophia's water broke just after supper, and Quinn rode hard to fetch Dr. Mills. By the time they returned, Sophia was pacing the main room, her face contorted with pain every few minutes. The labor lasted through the night. Quinn waited outside mostly, pacing his own path in the yard, jumping every time he heard Sophia cry out. The sky was just beginning to lighten when he heard a new sound, the thin wail of a newborn. His heart seemed to stop, then restart with a painful thud. Dr. Mills emerged an hour later, looking tired but pleased. "You have a healthy baby boy. Mother did fine, considering. She is exhausted, but she will recover well with rest and good food." Quinn nodded, trying to process the information. "A boy. Sophia had a son. You can go in now if you like," the doctor added. "She asked for you." Sophia was propped up in bed, her hair damp with sweat, dark circles under her eyes, but smiling. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in the blanket Quinn's sister had sent years ago. The baby had stopped crying and was making small, snuffling sounds. "Come meet him," Sophia said softly. Quinn approached slowly, feeling awkward and out of place. He had been around newborn calves and foals his whole life, but a human baby seemed impossibly fragile. When he looked down at the small face, wrinkled and red with a shock of dark hair, something profound shifted in his heart. "He is perfect," Quinn managed. "Would you like to hold him?" Quinn started to refuse, then saw the hope in Sophia's eyes and found himself nodding. She placed the baby carefully in his arms, showing him how to support the head. The weight was almost nothing, but the responsibility felt enormous. The baby opened his eyes, dark blue like all newborns, and seemed to look right at Quinn. "I am going to name him Samuel," Sophia said. "Samuel Thomas Vaughn. Do you think that is a good name?" "It is a fine name," Quinn said, unable to look away from the baby. Samuel. This tiny person who had no idea what kind of world he had been born into or what challenges lay ahead. Quinn felt a fierce protective surge, a desire to shield this child from everything harsh and cruel. He handed Samuel back carefully and excused himself, overwhelmed by feelings he could not quite name. Outside, dawn was breaking over the hills, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The world looked different somehow, charged with new possibility and new danger. The next weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and constant activity. Samuel had healthy lungs and used them frequently, especially between midnight and dawn. Quinn learned to function on a few hours of broken sleep, catching naps when he could. He learned how to change a diaper, though Sophia laughed at his fumbling first attempts. He learned how to walk a fussy baby around the room, bouncing gently until the crying stopped. Sophia recovered slowly, her body needing time to heal. Quinn took over most of the household tasks without discussion, cooking simple meals and keeping things running. They moved around each other in the small house with surprising ease, partners in the mission of keeping Samuel fed and content. One night, when Samuel was about 3 weeks old, Quinn was walking him around the main room trying to soothe his crying. Sophia had been up with him most of the previous night, and Quinn had insisted she sleep. He was singing softly, an old song his mother used to sing, when he noticed Sophia standing in the doorway of her room watching. "You are good with him," she said quietly. Quinn shrugged, still swaying gently. "He is a good baby, just needs to know someone is here." Sophia walked over and together they looked down at Samuel, who had finally quieted, his small fist curled against Quinn's chest. "He is lucky to have you in his life. I am lucky to have you in my life." Quinn met her eyes, saw something there that made his breath catch. "Sophia, I need to tell you something." She waited, her expression open and trusting. "These past months having you here, it has meant more to me than I know how to say. You and Samuel, you have made this house feel like a home. And I know this is probably not what you want to hear, and I do not expect anything from you, but I need you to know that I have feelings for you. Deep feelings. I love you, Sophia. I love Samuel too. If you want to stay, not just as someone I am helping, but as my family, I would be honored. I would raise Samuel as my own and love him like my own. But if that is not what you want, you are still welcome here for as long as you need." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "You would do that? Take on another man's child?" "He would be our child," Quinn said firmly, "if you will have me. I know I am not exciting or romantic. I am just a rancher with more work than money and more dreams than sense. But I promise I would spend every day trying to make you happy and make sure you and Samuel have everything you need." Sophia reached up and touched his face, her hand gentle against his cheek. "You are the most romantic man I have ever known. You took in a desperate woman without question. You have shown me more kindness and respect than anyone in my life. You make me feel safe and valued and seen." "How could I not love you?" Quinn's heart seemed to expand in his chest. "You love me." "I have loved you for weeks now," she admitted. "But I did not think I had the right to that love. I came here with nothing but shame and fear. I have brought complications into your life." "You have brought joy into my life," Quinn corrected. He looked down at Samuel, now sleeping peacefully. "Both of you have." Sophia leaned her head against his shoulder, and they stood there in the quiet house, the three of them forming a small circle of warmth in the vastness of the California night. They married a month later in a simple ceremony in Yuba City, with Dr. Mills and the shopkeeper's wife as witnesses. Sophia wore a dress she had sewn herself from the fabric Quinn had bought months ago. Samuel, now 6 weeks old and filling out beautifully, slept through the entire proceeding in a basket at their feet. That night, after Samuel was settled in the cradle Quinn had built, Sophia and Quinn finally shared a bed as husband and wife. They came together tentatively at first, both nervous despite everything that had passed between them. But soon nervousness gave way to passion, to a tenderness that felt sacred, to the joy of two people who had found each other against all odds. Afterward, Sophia lay with her head on Quinn's chest, tracing patterns on his skin. "I should tell you about Samuel's father," she said quietly. "You do not have to," Quinn said. "I want to. You deserve to know." She took a breath. "His name was Charles. He was the son of the family I worked for in Sacramento. He was handsome and charming, and he told me he loved me. I believed him. I was foolish." "You were not foolish. You were trusting." "When I told him about the baby, he denied it was his. He said terrible things about me, accused me of trying to trap him. His family dismissed me immediately with no references. I could not find other work, not in my condition. I had a little money saved, enough to take the stage toward Yuba City. I thought maybe I could find work there or in one of the smaller towns. I did not know what I would do really. I just knew I could not stay in Sacramento." Quinn tightened his arms around her. "I am sorry that happened to you, but I am grateful it brought you here." "So am I," Sophia said softly. "Samuel will never know that man. You are his father in every way that matters." As autumn deepened into winter, their small family settled into a comfortable routine. Samuel grew quickly, his dark eyes focusing more each day, his smiles beginning to emerge. Quinn doted on him shamelessly, carrying him around while doing chores, talking to him about the cattle and the horses and the land they would someday inherit. Sophia bloomed as well, the last shadows of fear and shame fading from her eyes. She laughed more easily now, sang while she worked, moved through the house with the confidence of a woman who knew she was loved. She and Quinn were partners in every sense, working together to build their life. The neighbors slowly became aware of the situation, and there was some talk, as there always was in small communities. But Quinn had earned respect through his hard work and fair dealing, and Sophia won people over with her quiet dignity and her skill with a needle. She began taking in sewing work, mending and altering clothes for the townspeople, building a small business that brought in extra income. When Samuel was 4 months old, Quinn finalized the adoption papers with a lawyer in Sacramento, legally making Samuel his son. Sophia cried when he showed her the documents, Samuel Theodore Barlow now written in official ink. "Theodore was my father's name," Quinn explained. "I want Samuel to carry it. He is part of our family now, all the parts that matter." Spring came, turning the California hills green and covering them with wildflowers. Samuel learned to sit up, then to crawl, exploring the house with determined curiosity. Quinn baby-proofed as best he could, moving anything dangerous out of reach and spending many evenings chasing a rapidly moving infant. On a warm April evening, as they sat on the porch watching Samuel play with wooden blocks Quinn had carved, Sophia took Quinn's hand. "I have something to tell you." Quinn looked at her, noting the particular glow in her face. "You are expecting again," she nodded, smiling. "How did you know?" "The same look you had before, happy but nervous. Are you happy about this?" "Yes," she said firmly. "Very happy. This baby will be ours from the start. Created from love, wanted from the very beginning, and Samuel will have a brother or sister." Quinn pulled her close, his heart full to bursting. "When?" "November, I think. Maybe December." They sat in the gathering dusk, Samuel babbling contentedly at their feet, the future stretching before them bright and full of promise. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Sophia felt better this time, stronger, more confident. She knew what to expect, and she had Quinn beside her, supporting her through every moment. By summer, her belly was rounding noticeably, and Samuel had become fascinated with it, patting it gently and talking his baby talk to his future sibling. In August, Quinn finished paying off the ranch, owning the land free and clear for the first time. It was a moment of profound pride, marking how far he had come from the poor boy who had left Missouri with nothing but determination. More than that, it meant security for his growing family, a foundation they could build on. The baby came early, on a cold November night with rain hammering the roof. Dr. Mills arrived barely in time, and the labor was faster than with Samuel. By dawn, they had a daughter, small but fierce, with Quinn's light hair and Sophia's delicate features. "Grace," Sophia said immediately, cradling the baby girl. "Grace Margaret Barlow." Quinn looked at his wife, exhausted but radiant, holding their daughter while Samuel, now 14 months old, was brought in to meet his sister. The toddler approached cautiously, his eyes wide, then reached out one finger to touch Grace's tiny hand. When she reflexively gripped his finger, Samuel's face split into a huge grin. "Sister," he said clearly, one of his first real words. Quinn felt tears prick his eyes. His family, his wife, his son, his daughter. 2 years ago, he had been alone, working himself to exhaustion with no one to come home to. Now his house was full of life and love and noise and chaos, and he would not trade it for anything. As Grace grew, the family dynamics shifted and settled. Samuel was a gentle big brother, protective and patient. Grace was energetic and demanding, keeping everyone on their toes. Sophia managed the household and her sewing business with impressive efficiency, while Quinn expanded the ranch, adding more cattle and improving the buildings. They had challenges, of course. There were lean years when the cattle prices dropped. There were illnesses and injuries and sleepless nights. There were disagreements and frustrations and moments of doubt. But through it all, they had each other, and that made everything bearable. When Samuel was 4, he asked Quinn the question they had been expecting. "Why do I look like Mama but not like you?" Quinn and Sophia had discussed this many times, agreeing on honesty appropriate to the child's age. Quinn sat down so he was eye level with his son. "Do you know what adoption means?" Samuel shook his head. "It means that sometimes a child is born to one family but raised by another family. You grew in Mama's belly, but I chose you to be my son. I chose to love you and raise you and be your papa. Does that make sense?" Samuel thought about this seriously. "So you picked me special, the most special," Quinn confirmed. "I saw you when you were brand new and I fell in love with you right away. You are my son in every way that matters. And Grace." "Grace grew in Mama's belly too, but she grew after Mama and I were married. So technically, she is my biological daughter. But you are both my children equally. I do not love one of you more than the other." Samuel nodded, satisfied. He went back to playing, and the subject did not come up again for years. When it did, when he was older and understood more, the truth was told gently but completely. Samuel never expressed anything but gratitude for Quinn, the only father he had ever known or would ever need. Time passed in the way it does, in seasons and milestones. Samuel learned to ride, to work cattle, to mend fences alongside Quinn. Grace learned to sew from Sophia, to garden, to manage the chickens with fearless efficiency. The ranch prospered, growing into one of the more successful operations in the area. When Samuel was 8 and Grace was 6, Sophia discovered she was pregnant again. This baby, another boy they named Marcus Henry Barlow, came screaming into the world in July of 1885, red-faced and furious at the heat. He remained the loudest of the 3 children, full of energy and opinions. Quinn was 35 now, with lines around his eyes from squinting into the sun and strands of gray appearing in his dark hair. Sophia was 32, still beautiful, her face reflecting the contentment of a woman well loved. They had built exactly the life Quinn had dreamed of during those lonely early years, and more than he had dared to hope for. The children grew, and the house was never quiet. There were always friends visiting, always projects underway, always something happening. Quinn expanded the house, adding more rooms, building a proper barn, creating space for the life they were living. In town, no one questioned Samuel's origins anymore. He was simply Quinn and Sophia Barlow's eldest son, a good kid who worked hard and treated people with respect. The old stories had faded, replaced by new gossip, new scandals, new arrivals who did not know the history. One evening, when Samuel was 15 and working alongside Quinn to repair the barn roof, he paused in his hammering. "Papa, can I ask you something?" "Always," Quinn said. "Do you ever wonder about my biological father? Who he was, what kind of man?" Quinn set down his own hammer and looked at his son, nearly as tall as him now, with Sophia's dark coloring and serious eyes. "Honestly, no. I know all I need to know about him. He had a chance to be part of your life, and he chose not to take it. That was his loss, the biggest loss of his life probably, though he will never know it. You are an amazing young man, Samuel. I am proud every single day to be your father." Samuel's eyes got bright. "I am glad you are my father. I cannot imagine anyone else." They finished the roof in comfortable silence, the bond between them needing no more words. The years continued their steady march. Samuel grew into a fine young man, responsible and kind, eventually taking over more of the ranch operations. Grace became a skilled seamstress like her mother, but she also had a head for business, helping expand Sophia's operation into a proper shop in town. Marcus, the wild youngest child, surprised everyone by developing a passion for books and learning, eventually attending a teaching college in Sacramento. Quinn and Sophia grew older together, their love deepening and maturing like good wine. They still sat on the porch most evenings, watching the sun set over the land they had built their life on. Sophia's hair went silver, and Quinn developed a limp from an old riding injury. But their hands still fit together perfectly, and they still found reasons to smile at each other across crowded rooms. When Samuel was 23, he married a girl from Yuba City, a pretty redhead named Emma who loved the ranch life as much as he did. They built a house on the far corner of the property, close enough to help but far enough for independence. Their first child, a boy they named Quinn Theodore Barlow, arrived the following spring. Holding his grandson for the first time, Quinn felt the circle complete itself in a way he could not quite articulate. This baby would never know the fear or poverty that Quinn had known as a child. This baby would grow up surrounded by love and security, with opportunities Quinn could only have dreamed of at that age. "You did good, Papa," Samuel said, watching Quinn with the baby. "You built something real here, something that will last." Quinn looked around at the family gathered in his home. Sophia, still his anchor after all these years. Grace, now engaged to a young banker from Sacramento. Marcus, home from college for the summer. Samuel and Emma starting their own family. And tiny Quinn Theodore, the next generation, proof that love and hard work and second chances could create miracles. "We did good," Quinn corrected, meeting Sophia's eyes across the room. "All of us together." That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, Quinn and Sophia lay in bed talking quietly. They were both in their 50s now, not old but certainly not young, aware of time's passage in their joints and muscles. "You ever think about that day I arrived?" Sophia asked. "How different our lives would be if you had turned me away." "I think about it sometimes," Quinn admitted. "But I do not think I could have turned you away. Something in your eyes that day, it called to something in me, like I was meant to help you, meant to love you." "Destiny," Sophia said softly. Maybe. Or maybe just two lonely people who found each other at exactly the right moment. I was so scared that day, scared and ashamed and desperate. I did not know how I would survive, how I would protect my baby. And then you were there, asking no questions, offering help without judgment. You saved us, Quinn, Samuel and me both. Quinn pulled her closer. You saved me too. I was just existing before you came, working and sleeping and working again. You taught me how to live, how to love, how to be part of something bigger than myself. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other and in memories, grateful for the unexpected journey that had brought them together. The seasons continued their eternal rotation. Samuel and Emma had 3 more children, filling the ranch with noise and laughter. Grace married her banker and moved to Sacramento, though she visited often with her 2 daughters. Marcus became a teacher in Yuba City, shaping young minds and carrying on the family tradition of helping others. Quinn and Sophia became the beloved grandparents, the center around which the family orbited. Their home was where everyone gathered for holidays and celebrations, where the newest babies were brought to be admired, where problems were solved and wisdom was dispensed. In the spring of 1901, when Quinn was 52 and Sophia 49, they celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. The family organized a huge party, inviting everyone from Yuba City and the surrounding ranches. Long tables were set up in the yard, loaded with food. Music played and couples danced in the grass. Children ran everywhere, playing games and eating cake until they were sick. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Samuel stood up and called for quiet. I want to say something about my parents, he began, his voice carrying across the yard. Most of you know our family's story, or at least parts of it. My mother came here alone and scared, carrying me with nowhere to go. My father took us in without question or judgment. He could have turned us away. He could have helped for a day or a week and then sent us on our way. Instead, he gave us a home and a family and a future. Samuel's voice grew thick with emotion. He raised me as his own son, loved me as his own son, never treating me differently than my brother and sister who came after. He showed me what it means to be a good man, a good husband, a good father. He taught me that family is not just about blood but about choice and commitment and love. He raised his glass. To Quinn and Sophia Barlow, the best parents anyone could ask for and an example of what love should look like. May we all be so lucky. To Quinn and Sophia. Everyone echoed, glasses raised high. Quinn felt Sophia's hand slip into his and he squeezed it tightly. Looking around at the faces gathered there, at the children and grandchildren and friends and neighbors, he felt a profound sense of peace. This was what mattered. Not wealth or fame or adventure, but this. Love freely given and returned, family built on trust and respect, a legacy that would continue long after he was gone. The years grew shorter, or seemed to, time accelerating in that way it does as people age. There were more grandchildren, then great-grandchildren. The ranch continued to thrive under Samuel's management, adapting to new techniques and technologies while maintaining the values Quinn had instilled. Quinn's health began to fail in his early 60s. Nothing dramatic, just a slow decline that both he and Sophia recognized for what it was. He made his peace with it, spending his days puttering around the ranch, playing with great-grandchildren, sitting on the porch with Sophia and remembering. One afternoon in late autumn, with the leaves turning gold and the air carrying the first hint of winter, Quinn and Sophia sat in their accustomed place on the porch. Quinn had been quieter than usual, and Sophia sensed him gathering his thoughts. "I have been thinking," he finally said, "about that first day, when you stepped off that stagecoach looking like the whole world was against you." Sophia smiled. I was certain my life was over. I had no idea it was actually just beginning. If I could go back and talk to that younger version of me, I would tell him to trust his instincts, to open his heart to the possibilities, that taking a chance on you would be the best decision he ever made. If I could go back and talk to younger me, I would tell her to stop being so afraid. That real love does not come with judgment or conditions, that she is worthy of kindness and respect and devotion. Quinn reached over and took her hand, his grip still strong despite his age. We made a good life, did we not? The best life, Sophia confirmed. Better than I ever imagined possible. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Samuel's youngest son was playing in the yard, chasing chickens with the fearless enthusiasm of a 5-year-old. From inside the house came the sounds of Grace helping with dinner preparations, and the rumble of Marcus's voice as he read to one of the grandchildren. "This is what I wanted," Quinn said softly. "All those years ago when I bought this land, I wanted a place filled with family and love and life. I wanted to build something that mattered." "You did," Sophia assured him. "You built something wonderful, something that will last long after us." Quinn nodded slowly. "I am ready, you know, when the time comes. I am not afraid." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes but did not let them fall. "I am not ready to let you go. I know. But I need you to know that these years with you, they have been the greatest gift of my life. You and our children and their children, you have given me more joy than one man has any right to. I could not have asked for better." They sat together until the stars came out, holding hands and holding each other in their hearts, grateful for every moment they had been given. Quinn passed peacefully in his sleep 3 weeks later, Sophia beside him, his family surrounding him. He was 65 years old and had lived a full, rich life. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched, whose respect he had earned through decades of integrity and kindness. Samuel gave the eulogy, speaking of his father with love and admiration. Quinn Barlow was not a famous man. He did not do anything that will make it into history books, but he changed lives through simple kindness and basic decency. He taught us that family is what you make it, that love is a choice you make every day, and that the measure of a man is not what he takes from the world but what he gives to it. Sophia lived another 7 years, spending them surrounded by her children and grandchildren, continuing to work in her garden and in her sewing room, keeping Quinn's memory alive through stories and laughter. When she passed at age 73, she was buried beside Quinn on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. The ranch remained in the family, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own improvements while maintaining the foundation Quinn and Sophia had established. The story of how it all began, the tale of the pregnant woman who arrived with nothing and the cowboy who asked no questions, became family legend, told and retold to each new generation as an example of what real love looked like. Samuel, before he died at the age of 81, made sure his own children and grandchildren understood the full truth of his origins. Not to shame anyone or dwell on the past, but to honor the man who had chosen to be his father when he did not have to, and to celebrate the love that had built their family. "My biological father gave me life," Samuel would say, "but my real father, Quinn Barlow, gave me everything else. He gave me his name, his home, his love, his wisdom, his example. He showed me what it means to be a man of honor. That is a legacy worth preserving." And preserved it was, in the land that still bore the Barlow name, in the children who still carried Quinn's values, in the stories that kept him and Sophia alive in memory. Their love story, unconventional and unexpected, became the foundation of a family dynasty that stretched across generations. The ranch house still stood well into the 20th century, updated and modernized but recognizable, with the porch where Quinn and Sophia had spent so many evenings watching the sunset. Couples in love would sometimes sit there and feel the echo of that earlier love, as if the very boards had absorbed it and held it still. In the end, Quinn Barlow's greatest legacy was not the land or the cattle or even the successful ranch, though those were all significant. His legacy was love, freely given to a woman and child who needed it desperately, then multiplied and shared across generations. It was the proof that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism are not dramatic or loud, but simple and quiet. Just one person choosing kindness over judgment, love over fear, and building from that choice a life worth living. And somewhere, in whatever lies beyond this life, Quinn and Sophia were together again, young and healthy, still holding hands, still building their forever, having proven that true love can spring from the most unlikely beginnings and grow into something eternal.